Okay, well, hello everyone. Welcome to Wine, Women, and Words. I am still alive. I am back. It's been a very, very long month without Wine, Women, and Words for me. I know Diana mentioned it at the beginning, but I'm in class. I'm in school right now, and this month my class happened to schedule lectures on Thursday at the time that we do Wine, Women, and Words. So I'm really hoping that tonight my professor doesn't decide, oh, hey, I'm going to check out that podcast she was talking about. Because
she's really sick tonight.
Yes, totally sick.
So with
I
me,
know
of course,
all month I've been a single mother. I'm glad to have you back. Now you can take care of your kids.
I know it's been crazy, but we are joined tonight by Heather Webb, author of Phantom's Apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining us, Heather. And I know you were mentioning that you're at a writing retreat with spotty Wi-Fi, so
hopefully it'll stick. It's cut out on me a few times in the middle of things, so I've got my fingers crossed that it's okay. At this hour here, I would think that the 5 people that live in this town or in this sort of wooded area are not on the internet.
Probably not. You probably don't move to the woods so that you can be on the internet all the time.
Yeah. So,
well,
all right. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So
absolutely.
We're excited to have you back.
And just to kind of give the overview of why this glass of wine here is so valuable to me right now. I was telling you guys, it's been kind of like a Murphy's Law kind of week for me. Well, I just literally maybe like very recently got back to my house in Chicago driving from North Carolina. I was supposed to be back a lot earlier, but my son, Landon, decided to pull a night table down on him earlier this week. He was fine, like body-wise, but a brass lamp got him on the head, cut a gash open in his forehead, and by the time I tried to help him get up and he turned and looked at me, it was just like blood everywhere. It was like a horror movie.
Oh.
So scared the crap out of me, called 911, went to the hospital. He's fine, but it threw my entire week out of whack because, you know.
Because blood on your child's face. Yes, absolutely.
So we got home.
I hear that'll do that to somebody, yeah.
Totally forgot about a PowerPoint that I had to finish tonight for class, but fortunately my professor is very kind and gave me an extension. And so wine. So what is everyone drinking tonight?
Cheers! I'm drinking a Sauvignon Blanc, actually, and only because it was a pretty warm day. Because I'm a 95% red drinker, but I do like a rosé or a Sauvignon Blanc on occasion if it's warm out. So, yeah.
It's a perfect hot weather wine, I feel like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying. Oh, sorry.
I was at the movies. I went to an outdoor movie on Sunday, and everybody had rosé. Like,
really?
Yeah, it was. We were at the Hollywood.
It's kind of a faddish thing right now, I think.
It totally is, because I think it was a rarity to see somebody without a bottle of rosé.
Well, speaking of, I am trying the rosé that Wink sent me this month called Sauvetage from France. And it's actually the rosé that Diana was trying to get in her Wink box, but it was sold out.
Yes, so you probably got the last one and you took my rosé. That's all right, because tonight I'm drinking a Frappato, which is I believe that's the type of wine it is, because I'm not quite sure, but it's got this really great label with this hedgehog on it.
Yeah.
It's really cool wine. Obviously it's from Italy, and it's really good. Nice and fruity. So it's got multi-layers and it's really good with pasta. But anyways, guys, if you guys want to try out these wines, you can go to trywink.com/www podcast. And using that code, you can get $22 off your first order of wine.
Awesome.
And yeah, and they ask you super really important questions like, how do you take your coffee? How do you feel about blueberries? I mean, these are really important things, people. But based on those questions, they formulate a wine based on your taste. And as you continue to rate the wine, they continue to narrow down your profile and your recommendations. And I have yet to have a wine that I truly don't like from there. I'm on my second order, and I think I've given a 3-star to one bottle, and everything else has been 4 or 5 stars. It's really great. So again, go to trywink.com/www podcast. Get your $22 off to see what Michele and I have been talking about.
Yes, to all of that, because this rosé is yummy. But moving on to the Phantom's Apprentice, I almost said Magician's Life for 2 reasons. One, because I saw Greer McAllister's name up at the top.
Yeah.
And 2, I've been listening. It's a 13-hour drive, but it feels like 7 days from North Carolina to Chicago. So I was listening to The Magician's Lie on CD on my way there and back.
It's a great book.
Holy cow.
I love that book.
But
yeah,
like, holy plot twist, Batman. That's the text that I sent Diana when I finished this book.
And before we go on with talking about the book, this is the designated spoilers episode. So we are going to get down and dirty into this book. We're going to get all up in there on the Phantom's Apprentice.
Do it. Let's get dirty.
Yes, we are. So with that being said, and my wiener being in the picture, if you guys have not read the book yet, or if you guys care about not knowing what happens at the end, you want to read it for yourself, this is your opportunity to go ahead and get off the show and come back after you've read the book. Now,
I need to get like a little poster board that I can hold up that says spoilers.
Well, I mean, there's usually also the Jeopardy theme song that we like to do. So
I feel like copyright gets in there somewhere.
Yeah. It does.
But anyway, okay, spoilers. If you haven't read it, listen next week after you have.
Yes.
So, Diana, would you like to kick us off? Because I'm going to jump straight to the spoilers, and I don't think.
Well, we touched on this before, but with Phantom's Apprentice, The Phantom's Apprentice, I think I need to drink more wine. It's a retelling of the original book, not so much the musical. I think that's the important thing for people to understand about this. What would you say are some of the key differences between the book and the musical?
Well, like any book to film or book to theater adaptation, you can really only pick out a framework and sort of work off of that, because a book it's longer, it's richer, there's just a lot more there, and it's impossible to get show all of that on screen or on stage. So I think that's part of it. And I think Andrew Lloyd Webber, I mean, I love the Phantom of the Opera, his version, but I also think that it is he took a modern view of it, and in fairness to him, I did as well to some degree, but I also created a lot of historical context that he doesn't transcribe to the stage, and I think that that is all there in the original, and unfortunately that piece, I think, can make that musical hard for someone who knows nothing about it to watch it, because they have no idea, like, what are these people, what are they doing, their lungs, they don't even realize really sort of everything that's happening. So I think when it initially came out, that probably wasn't the case, but now it's 30 years later, and you have whole new generations that are going to see it, but they don't necessarily have all of that background. So the original novel has all of that fleshed out really nicely, and that was something that I wanted to portray in the novel because it had all this space. And again, style back then was so different from style today. So he creates it somewhat, but he doesn't. And I'm speaking of Gaston Leroux. He doesn't. First of all, the book, I should back up and say the book was written as a serial. just like Charles Dickens novels. So he would write a piece and it would be printed in a paper, and then he would write the next, piece, and then and on and on and on from there. And when you actually read the novel cover to cover, you can really see that happening. It's not tight. Some of it veers off. The points of view change. It's really very different from a novel today. So I actually took a lot of those ideas and I condensed them into a more modern, compact novel with one perspective, with one heart, with one soul, instead of having it sort of veer in all of these directions. And it doesn't mean it's not a masterpiece then. It's just that literature, as we know, is a living document. It changes over time, and it's a representative of the zeitgeist and the mores and the times. And our times have changed drastically since then. So I was trying to capture those elements and also of the novel and sort of flesh out all that context in a more modern view so that we could understand what it was he was really trying to do. And that's hugely different from the stage version. The stage version is really all about the romance. Mm-hmm. And the thing is there is no romance in the book, really. Not with Raoul. Raoul is in love with Christine, and she's really not having it. And and the Phantom, of course, is obsessive and not quite really in love with her until the end. And even then, I'm not sure you could call obsession love. I mean, it's a little creepy, let's face it, but we also love that about him. So I kind of redefined the characters a bit. I created backstory for each one of them to give them more depth, and make them someone that we could relate to a bit better than you can either on stage or in the original novel. So there's a lot of difference. I mean, there's a lot, the story structure is fairly similar, but then, of course I break out of that a bit too.
And that romance, I'm glad you touched on that, because that was something else I was going to bring up. Because we think about the Phantom of the Opera, we think about it as being this great romantic tale. And really, in this book, you bring it back, and it's really more of a romance for Christine to learn to love herself.
Yes.
And I love that with the interplay of these toxic relationships that she has surrounding her. I mean, really, every guy that's around her, when you sit down and look at it, really analyze it, they're all kind of toxic, father included.
They are.
He's got
yes.
his moments. So, I mean, that's a lot to unpack there. I mean, that was something intentional with bringing the characters, their backstory and everything that you wanted to pull out, I'm assuming.
It was, so when I reread that original novel, I realized, I really don't like most of these characters, which is funny to say because I loved the story so much and had memorized all the lyrics to to Andrew Lloyd Webber's play and all that stuff. And yet, as an author and an adult woman who has been through things, I'm rereading this and I'm like, are you kidding me? She's a limp dish rag. She's a caricature. And then I look at Carlotta and she's a caricature of like the mean girl, and there's absolutely no depth for either one of them. And this is actually I'm not bashing Guests on the Rue. This is very, very common for males writing women in that era. And so, and you can
even for this era, someone even goes so far for this era that they can be a caricature for some guys out there just not doing their due diligence for writing a good female a character.
That's completely true. And so I just thought these women have hearts and souls, and they have stories, and they have reasons why they act the way they act, and they have motivations and goals. And so I really wanted to show that this sort of simpering Christine Daae really was trying to overcome a lot of grief. Mm-hmm. And this she'd had this drifter kind of childhood and needed to figure out where her place was and what it was she wanted to do and who she was. And, not having, she had her father, but, he yanked her around all over the place. And that's a really unstable environment for a kid to really understand who they are. So, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do. It's why I had decided to write in first person, because I felt like every time I started to put the Phantom into the story, he's such a strong character, he would take over the story, and I'd have to be like, no, this isn't your story, and prune him back and rein him in again. And so I decided it had to be in first person so that it was very firmly in Christine Daae's point of view. And I love Eric, as twisted as he is. But he's a strong character, and he does want to take over. And, you know, you hear writers talk about things like that there are some characters that butt their way into the story, Delacroix included. I did not plot him out. He was not expected. I got 70 pages into the book, and he showed up and he butted his way right into that first draft. And I was kind of like, who are you? What are you doing? And it took me 5 drafts to figure out what his motivation was. Like, what's your point? Why are you here besides being a convenient, you know, cover for Eric? So
I am so glad you brought him up, because I mean, initially I liked him, but I never trusted him. I couldn't trust the character.
That's good.
And earlier in the month, Michelle's like, "Oh, I loved Delacroix. He's so great. He's so wonderful."
I'm so disappointed. I'm so betrayed by Delacroix.
Oh, that's funny.
I did a really good job keeping my mouth shut when she was singing his praises, because I didn't want to give anything away.
Like, you know, you get to maybe, I don't know what the exact point is, but once like everything started kind of unraveling, like you get to the point where Carlotta was awesome, and she was a bitch, and
I love her.
You hated
her. I kind of love her too. Thank you for saying. I loved writing her part. You know, the scene with the hair pulling, I was like, yes. That was my favorite scene to write. I just wanted her to go all catty and just go for it.
Because she was dying to do that the entire time, but she can't. She has this perfect image to uphold, which must be exhausting.
Yeah.
But when she confronted Raoul, and I was reading that and told him that her problem could wait 6 more months, I was like, no, this didn't happen in the musical.
Even in the musical, Carlotta was just...
She was like over the top, just like very...
And she was only in the beginning. She booked it once the chandelier fell on her, so we didn't really get to see that side of her in the musical.
Well, that's the thing, is that she's sort of she has all this promise as a character, and she kind of comes into the original and Andrew Lloyd Webber's version and serves one very sort of shallow purpose, and then she disappears. And I really wanted to show why she was so bitchy, and why she was working so hard to push out Christine beyond just, I'm the diva and you're not. Because we're all, as human beings, we have so much more going on, and we're all paradoxical. So I really wanted to kind of show some of that. So it was fun writing. She was one of my favorite people to write. I loved writing Claudette, and I really loved writing her, because they're polar opposites, and yet they were both very closely in Christine's orbit, So
yeah, she was a great juxtaposition for Christine, because she really got to help show off those elements of Christine that made Christine that character where you could see where she's trying to grow, and she's that young ingenue. And then in a lot of ways, I felt like Carlotta represented the old guard in a way, where this is the way women had to do things. This is the way you had to play things to be able to survive. Versus Christine, who's like, okay, I'm going to go be an illusionist. I'm going to figure out stuff on my own. I'm going to handle this on my own, because Christine really doesn't have much of a choice.
Right.
You've got 2 ways to look at these problems.
And she had to be kind of clobbered over the head to figure it out. But that's kind of true of all of us.
Oh, yeah.
Don't we all have to kind of go through the ringer before we're like, okay, I see, I need to do this, I need to change this job, or I need to go down this path, or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I was the clobber in Diana's life.
Yes, you were. And you can continue to remind me of that all the time.
I will. That's a great book dedication, by the way.
Hint, hint, hint.
No.
I was going to give up on writing altogether, just to fill you in, Heather, and those of you who have not heard this story before, because I know Michele has brought it up before. Yeah, I was going to give up on writing altogether completely. And Michele read something I wrote, a little short story, because she was like, hey, let's go ahead and just enter this in short story contest for fun. And she read what I wrote, and she was like, holy cow, why aren't you writing? And I was like, because I'm not a writer. This is not my thing. I tried once. I failed. It's not my thing. And she would not relent until I actually started writing again.
Well, here's the thing. You're young, so you're way too young to give up on it anyway. So I agree with her.
I was young. I mean, I am pushing 40, guys.
Yeah, that's
so
young
I'm not
in the
that
writing
much
world.
of a spring chicken.
Yeah, but that's young in the writing world. You know, that it really is.
Good to know.
You got all kinds of time. I'm glad you're sticking with it. It's not an easy profession, but you really have to enjoy storytelling and you know, your time in a fictional world, you know, because that's really what it's about in the end. You know, all the sales and all that stuff, really, it's so variable, and you really can't count on it. It has to be about the love of writing and fiction and reading. So
Oh, yes. You guys. But so just to veer back for 1 second.
Circle us out of the philosophical writing world back to the books. Yes.
So one character that I have always just really hated was Raul. Like what was the word? Diana, what did I say that he did? Was it no? Did he flit? He flitted.
That's right. He flitted. We had a whole conversation about this. Yes, he flitted.
Like he flits around and saves Christine, and then he flits back. And I was so mad that she ended up with him in the musical. I've never read the book, but now I want to. But
even then, in the book, the difference is they end up. Do they end up together? I think they end up together. So it's terrible that I don't remember this. I read it again 4 years ago. I think they end up together also, but there's a major struggle, just like in the play. And he gets real kind of obsessive too. And that's partially where I got that idea too, that all the men were wanting to control her on some level, because in the original, he's very oppressive, and she's very much like, stand back. Out of my face. You're killing me. I'm you know, I've got this phantom on my tail and you're breathing down my neck. So you don't like him because he flits. And what else?
I have two unexpected visitors who are determined not to leave.
Below the age of 15?
Below the age of 5.
Oh.
Well, I'll let you. Do you want to go deal? Do you want to deal with them? And
no, we're good. We're good. I got backup.
Okay, that's right. Backup.
But in the Phantom's Apprentice, Raul, it's like you said at the beginning. You took the caricatures of the book and of the musical, and you filled them out so they were actual people. Because in the musical, I really had a very hard time connecting to the characters. It was like, oh, okay, she's the main character and he's the guy that's going to save her, and he's the bad guy who I think is oddly attractive, and I don't know if I would be all that upset if he was obsessed with me. I think the Phantom was the one that I connected to the most. Like,
yeah, he's the most well-written character for sure.
But in the Phantom's Apprentice, Raul is much more fleshed out, and you get a sense of who he is as a person besides just like this pretty boy that flits around.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to. So there's one mention in the novel of him being home for the Navy, and I was like, yes. So he's a man's man. So we need to put some of that in there instead of him being this little pretty boy in his tuxedo that, like you said, flits about. So I wanted to, you know, having been a military brat myself, I know the toll that moving around takes, and I also know what it's like for men to go off for months and sometimes years and not be with their family. So I could very, I say easily, and it was not, none of this was easy, but construct a situation where he was, in Italy and Carlotta was there, and he was down on his luck and really depressed when things happened to his friend, and all of that felt very real to me too. I could see it plain as day from a Navy officer. So I'm glad to hear that, because he was a very thin very thin character. And I just thought, if he were coming on to me, I would want to smack him, be like, get out of here, like, give me something else. So I tried to give him something else. So, but it was tricky. It was tricky because I didn't want him to save her. I really wanted her to save herself, and I wanted her to save him and save anything she wanted. I felt like she had to do it herself. And so, there's this whole scene where she goes to his house and the gun is gone and someone got shot and there's all this. And I just thought, my initial draft was that he actually contacts his friend, this inspector, and he helps her out with all of these things. And then I'm like, no. The boy does not save the girl in this book. So I had to flip that over and rewrite that a bit so that it was still her story and he didn't take over. So
yeah, it's funny. Whenever I've recommended this book multiple times to people.
Thank you.
Oh, plenty more. Then there will be plenty more. But it was funny because when I had it with me this weekend, because I bring books just to take pictures of them. When I was showing it to my friend, and I was like, "You'll love this book. Christine's not all that annoying. You'll actually like her." She was like, "Okay."
Christine's not annoying. Raoul's not annoying. Like, you actually want to read about these people.
Exactly. And I think it's time that we unpack that relationship between Christine and the Phantom, because we got a whole lot of unpacking to do when it comes down to that. Because we've been trained that the Phantom and Christine's relationship is this romantic relationship. It's so romantic and whatnot.
And in the book, it's not, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obsessive, but she feels sorry for him. She does not have any romantic feelings whatsoever. But Andrew Lloyd Webber did. He thought that there was romance, and he made it romance. And so, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. You're not bitter.
Yeah. No, I'm not bitter. I loved it. This is what made me want to write about it. I love it, but it's also, I loved it as a 16-year-old. As an adult, I'm like, there's more, especially I think in our era of Me Too, and it's the women are really coming forward. I think it's our time, and I just, or the beginning of our time. And I think that we don't want stories like that anymore.
Yeah, and I think this is, it's giving me an idea for creating her story for post Me Too era books, and I think this would have to be at the top of the list because of that, because of how you portray the relationship. I mean, to quote, my favorite line is just one sentence in the book. I have it highlighted and marked on my copy here.
Yay!
This is simply, love did not take prisoners. Point blank, love does not do that. And looking at this,
that was a good part.
Huh?
That was a good part.
I know. I know. Especially this emotional buildup, and you have that one strong punch sentence in there. Okay. So, fangirling aside, do you think that his affection for her, his obsession and his love was pure love on his demented part for her? And I don't want to say pure in the sense of, good love. This is a toxic love. This is an unhealthy sort of love. Or do you think it was a confused nostalgia for her mother? Because obviously there was a relationship with her mother and the Phantom.
Yes. So I constructed all of that. So that none of that was in the original at all. In the original, he did obsess about her, and I think that people who become obsessed, they confuse it for love, obviously, because of their mental health issues. But and he was such a battered, abused human being, rejected human being, that you can see where that happens for him. So in my book, though, I wanted there to be something else. Not just, oh, she's pretty and I'm going to be obsessed with her. She's pretty and she can sing and I'm going to train her to be better and stick her in that spotlight. I thought, again, where's the motivation? Why would he do that? It's not like he hates Carlotta.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like by putting Christine up there, he has anything to gain. What does he have to gain?
Mm-hmm.
So none of the motivations made sense to me emotionally. So I had to come up with a way to make that happen. And I felt like, hi, I hear mama in the background. So I had to come up with a way to make that work. And so, yes, to answer your question, as I'm rambling off and explaining this, yes, he very much was projecting his feelings for Christine's mother onto her, onto Christine. And she looked so much like her, you know, she wanted to be an illusionist like her. The fire in losing Nanette itself is what drove him to madness, and having these people hunt him down like a dog, essentially, and take everything from him that mattered. And which, that was another thing I wanted to explain, why he went underground and to hide. Yeah, so he very much projected. And when I figured that out, you know how it came out was I was just drafting. Sometimes you don't have that idea in your head and you're just writing, and then all of a sudden he calls her by her mother's name, and I'm like, oh my God, he's creepy. He's a creepy old man. That's so disgusting. And then I rewrote that whole part because I thought, that's it. That is it. That is one of those big key moments that's going to differentiate this from the original. And yeah, it was very shocking, actually. I didn't expect it at all. So
yeah, I didn't expect it either. How about you, Michele?
Well, no, I mean, it was like one plot twist after another, and then I had actually, I dropped the book. Like, my daughter Lily, she climbed onto my lap and knocked the book out of my hand, and it fell. So when I opened it, I opened it to a part that I wasn't at, and I looked on the page, and my eyes fell on the word mother. And I was like, what? And then I got super confused because I was like, wait, didn't her mother die? Like, didn't she got sick, right? Am I going crazy? So I may have read ahead a little bit, and it's just like one of those moments when you're reading a book going, what the?
That's excellent. Yeah, you know, so this was one of the challenges about this book too, is that because of the original cast of the book and the play, there are all these characters, and they all have some sort of influence on Christine. So, and her arc as a character. So I had to tie up like 8 threads by the end of the book. And it was kind of epic. It was, you know, and I wanted them, again, all that extra backstory, some interesting twists, all this stuff. And so look at me, I'm doing this. To put them all together was no easy feat. It was very challenging. But it taught me a lot about plotting. It taught me a lot about mystery and thriller writing, which I knew nothing about. And this obviously isn't a thriller. It's suspenseful. It's not a thriller, but it's got all of those twists. And so I learned a lot about writing through and then going back and planting in clues, something I'd never done before. So that was really interesting too. Yeah, it was an undertaking, I tell you.
Well, and
it turned out well.
That first time that he called her Nanette, that was like one of those, that's random.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
How would he know her middle name? Like, but okay, whatever. Let's keep reading. So I completely missed that. Like I pride myself on picking up clues, and I glossed over that. But Delacroix, like this really affected me. I can't let it go that he became like, cause he was so nice, and he was very disappointed.
Do you have
he was like he's one of those handsome older men of a certain age who's accomplished and good family friend, and it turns out he's really, he's obsessed himself, and has his own heartache and pain that he's trying to overcome. So I think he really did. I mean, I wrote his character, so I guess I can say this. He loved Christine and he loved Madame Valerius, but I think that he just was messed up, and they got sort of tangled in the web of his obsession and his deceit and got in the way. And so he had to make threats to get them off his back so that he could still fill that hole in his heart, kind of thing, and get to the bottom of this phantom guy who took everything from him in his view. So yeah. I like too that he mirrors the phantoms, his journey. They're almost parallel in a lot of ways. And you don't see him coming. So I'm glad that it surprised you. And it's funny that you also felt like he was creepy from the beginning, and you could tell. So when I first wrote him, I kept having him make these creepy eyes. And then I'm like, that's going to give it away if I keep putting he has creepy eyes I didn't write it like that, but like 7 or 8 times I had to delete his creepy eyes from the scene because I thought, no one's going to miss that. I have to make it more surprising.
Exactly. And we all love it. I mean, I know I love a good villain. I mean,
yeah,
I don't find an actor handsome until he's actually played a villain on television or in a film. So, I mean, obviously I liked him. So, because I liked him, Michele, you should have known.
Well, there was one thing that I kept wondering is every time like he would hold her hand and she would say like it was just like a little too hard,
yeah.
And I kept going, okay, there's a connection. Like there has to be a connection between him and her that I just haven't gotten to yet.
At one point, I thought he might have been the Phantom. At one point, I was thinking that he was the Phantom, and that was going to be the big plot twist.
I think I may have thought that too at some point.
Yeah, my critique partner thought that. Just my critique partner, when she read it, was giving me feedback. She wrote at one point in the margins, "Ha ha, Delacroix's the Phantom," and I just laughed wickedly, like, "What? No, he's not." But it made me happy to think that she thought that. She thought she had me all figured out.
So when you handed her like the part back where you found out who Delacroix was, did you write, "Ha ha"? No, he's not.
No, but I did text her when I got to the end, because she had written, when she got to the end, she wrote like, "Oh my God, I did not see this coming, blah, blah, blah," whatever. And then she helped me figure out some other things that needed some tweaking. But yeah, I did text her about it. We went back and forth a bit, and that was fun. She writes mysteries, so she stumps me all the time. She writes these really sort of ironclad mysteries that I can almost never figure out. So it was good to stump her for a change.
Nice. Well, going back to the whole illusionist thing, because I love the illusionist take on Christine, and especially because I love old school vintage illusionist style magic. But when you brought the illusionist, that thread in there, the taste of it, was that a way for you to bring in that spiritualism that was taking place in the 19th and early 20th centuries?
Yeah, so they're definitely connected. And the whole reason I got the idea from the novel. Mm-hmm. So Eric could throw voices, like when Carlotta, that whole scene where she sounds like a frog, that's the Phantom throwing his voice.
What?
Yeah. And you don't know that in the play. You can't get it in the play, but in the novel, he can throw voices. He's an expert with mirrors. And in fact, when he captures Raoul and he captures the Persian, he puts them in this room that's all mirrors, and they have changing images. And then the temperature turns really hot like a desert, and he tortures them. Essentially, it's a torture chamber, but it's all mirrors. And he just did all these things that were kind of like an illusionist. And I thought, that's interesting. So then I started researching some things behind that. And it turns out that Gaston Leroux put those tidbits of illusionism into the book on purpose because it was so popular during that era. And it was very closely tied to spiritualism. So I thought, well, hell, if you haven't read the novel, you're not going to, and all that research, you're not going to know and understand why and how these characters came about, how the Phantom himself came about and had all these seemingly almost kind of like oddly, he was always there, and it felt like he kind of had powers a little bit, right? And kind of not. So anyway, it's all about the illusionist stuff from that era. So I wanted to create a context of that, and that's where I came up with the idea of Christine really wanting to be an illusionist herself, because I thought, I love that stuff too. It's so juicy and fun and goth and beautiful and dark. And then the spiritualism stuff has all of that energy and that spiritualism, like the ghost stuff too. So I just wanted to tie it all together and really, again, flesh out that context that's not, definitely not in the play, and it's not immediately accessible in the novel either. So so that was my point with going with that angle. So, and I love The Night Circus. Have you read The Night Circus?
Yes. Love The Night Circus.
It's one of my favorite books. Yeah, and I kind of wanted to channel a bit of that feel too, and it's the same era as The Phantom. So yeah, and you can see that's all that illusionism stuff. It's the same era when it was all very, very, very popular. So.
Well, I wonder if, because, okay, so I mentioned before I was driving back, back and forth from North Carolina and listening to The Magician's Lie, and that's illusionists, and then Christine is over here with illusionists, and I wonder if they would have ever crossed paths, because it's almost around the same time.
Yeah, it's slightly different, but it's close. And I have to tell you, when Greer, so I'm friends with Greer. I knew her before under a different name, that she wrote a women's fiction novel, and then now she writes all historical suspense. But when she posted the cover and the blurb for The Magician's Lie, I think I'd had a rough draft, maybe 2 drafts done on The Phantom's Apprentice, and I had a freaking heart attack. Because my initial response to the write-up was, oh my God, that's my book! That's my book! No! And I contacted her and said, okay, I'm obsessed. We have to talk about this. Is this that? And then she's like, no, it's not that. We ended up hashing it out, and it was totally fine. And then, of course, I read her book when it came out, and I loved it. So she agreed to blurb the Phantom's Apprentice after that. But yeah, so I don't think they would have crossed paths, but it's close, isn't it? It's really close.
Because I think Greer's takes place later. So, Christine would already be in the U.S.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact date. I'd have to look.
1905, because I'm almost at the end of the book, and I'm beginning to think things don't end well for Virgil. I'm a little nervous, but that's a different book.
Well, we're not giving away spoilers for The Magician's Lie in this episode, so you're just gonna have to keep reading.
That's right.
But I actually just thought of a question while you're talking about illusionism for Christine. And okay, so Delacroix, his whole thing, like his as a professor, he debunks illusionists. Like his that's all. But he's the one that brought the illusionists at the party, right? Am I going crazy?
He chose the medium.
Or the medium, right?
Yeah. So, okay. So what that was really the madame told him to go get whoever and bring someone that he thought was good. And so he just brought somebody that was, really one of those popular solid people that he saw all the time in the streets. But you notice he's very snarky about it in the scene because he doesn't really believe the person is worth their weight at all. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of like, haha, let's all go do this thing. And then when he busts out with the Angel of Music, it's like, dun, dun, dun. Was that real or wasn't that real? I don't know. Which is, I think, how we all feel about spirits and ghosts and afterlife and God and angels and all that stuff, right? Is it real? Is it not real? And that's kind of why I left that hanging to where it feels like it's real, but you don't know for sure.
Well, every time at the beginning, when they first started talking about the ghost, I had to keep reminding myself, like, no, that's the Phantom, and he's real. There is no ghost.
Yeah, it's I'm glad because that was intentional. I really wanted to make it kind of ambiguous. Even with the dad, when the dad shows up, when you get the feeling that his ghost is hanging around. But it's almost kind of like, that's not a ghost, that's just a wind or whatever it is. I wanted to again create that question more than anything. Is it real or is it not? And it's really about what you believe. And Christine believed it was him. That gave her courage to do what she needed to do. So sometimes, we believe in things, and it pushes us in the right direction. What it doesn't matter if it's true to believe. The biggest points of the book is the same with magic. Does it matter if it's real? It entertains you and it's beautiful, and you believe, at least in that moment, and that's what matters.
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. We're right about at our hour almost.
All right. Thank you for having me.
For those
it's always nice chatting with you, ladies.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
It is so funny because, in between the episodes, when we announced that you were coming on, you're the book of the month, turns out we have a friend in common.
Who's that?
Eddie Louise?
Eddie Louise? Oh, yeah. I don't really know her, I don't think. Maybe I do. I see her on Twitter.
Yeah.
What's that?
She said you guys did the writer's box together. Yeah.
You said we took a writer's class?
Or the writer's box.
Writer Unboxed. A conference?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, I haven't taken any writer's classes, but yeah, that's right. I remember that. So there are like 115 people or something, 120 people who went to that. So you're just close enough that it's a small group, but it's just big enough that you don't necessarily talk to everybody that much. So, obviously saying hi and chatting a little bit, but not, extensively or anything. But yeah, she's very, very nice. Very nice. Does she live in your area?
Yes. She's in SoCal area, and she's actually going to be on the show next month about her book. July. July is when she's coming on. Yeah. Because I'm excited. I've been watching her career, watching her do her stuff, and I'm happy for her.
Awesome.
Yeah. But your book, Phantom's Apprentice.
Heck
for those
yeah.
Good
for her.
Yeah, show the picture, everything. Check it out if you guys have not done so already and stuck around through all of our spoilers. We have links to be able to purchase it on our website at winewomenwordspodcast.com. And get your wine to go with it. The link again is trywink.com/www podcast. And then next month, can we announce next month's book, Michele?
Why not?
Yeah. Amy Runyon is going to be on the show. We're going to do Daughters of the Night Sky for next month's book.
That's a buddy of mine.
Well, thank you so much, Heather. We had so much fun chatting with you, and keep us in the loop with future projects because because you're part of the family now.
Thank you. Good luck with all your little guys in the background there.
Thank you. He finally passed out. I don't know what the other one is doing.
Keep writing.
Go find out. Yes, we'll keep writing too.
Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.